Welcome to the Binge List. I am Paul Chappell, your host, and today we are reviewing Outlaw King, a movie on Netflix starring Chris Pine, couple regulars from Game of Thrones, and Kick-Ass himself. So this movie is about Robert the Bruce, which is kind of a sequel to Braveheart. And ironically, the term Braveheart was actually a moniker that has been applied to Robert the Bruce through the ages, in which they stole to call William Wallace's movie by Mel Gibson, Braveheart. Just a little side fact that you might want to know, because this movie is actually a follow-up to Braveheart, if more historically accurate. And I say that because if you know anything about Braveheart, it was highly inaccurate. For one thing, they had Scottish men wearing kilts like 500 years before Scottish men wore kilts. They had a lot of inaccuracies with timelines and such. They had Mel Gibson's William Wallace sleeping with Isabella, Queen Isabella, when she would have only been like 3 years old or something. So there was a lot of fudging of facts, but it was a great movie. And I know this because my wife watches it every few months. And my wife doesn't usually watch movies like that. I mean, it's a very guy film, but it also has very romantic tendencies in Braveheart.
I will love you my whole life. You and no other.
You know, it's just a great movie up and down. I mean, cinematically, it's wonderful, wonderful film. You know, the historical inaccuracy notwithstanding, but it's a great movie. And the question you're probably asking yourself is Outlaw King on par with Braveheart? And the answer is yes and no, because I felt like it was going to be some kind of TV movie when I started watching it, and it totally wasn't a TV movie. You could tell they filmed this movie with, you know, they had it in mind probably to release it in theaters, and Netflix bought it out. I don't have any evidence of that, but that's what it felt like to me.
Wait on my word!
So let's get into it. What did I like about this film? Well, I have to say I like Chris Pine. He's very charismatic. They picked the right guy to play Robert the Bruce. Even though my conception of this character was formed by the guy who played him in Braveheart. But we can forgive that. Chris Pine comes across, like he always does, as a genuinely good guy. I don't know how close he was to Robert the Bruce in actuality, though, because what I've read about Robert the Bruce is, he was like a lot of men of his day. He conscripted soldiers. He did what was necessary as a lord. Strangely enough, in this movie, when he marries his second wife, he actually respects her as a woman, which I find highly unlikely to have happened. And this movie happened. This story took place, not story. This real event took place 700 years ago, and as far as I know, women were treated as objects and property back then. So I doubt it very much. In the movie, they have Robert the Bruce, waiting to actually sleep with his wife in their arranged marriage until she respects him and loves him as a husband. I find that very unlikely, especially if you see who's playing his wife, Elizabeth de Burgh. Florence Pugh is playing his wife. And if you see her picture, you know what I'm saying. Robert the Bruce totally smashed that on his wedding night. I'm pretty sure. But they injected some, 21st century sensibilities in the film and made it a little bit better than I would have anticipated. It made you actually like him as a character. And of course, they had Stephen Delane playing Edward I in this movie. Now, like with everything else in this movie, my conception of who Edward I or Edward the Longshanks, if you remember Braveheart, it's pretty much my conception of Edward I was formed by the movie Braveheart. And Stephen Delane, of course, is the guy who played Stannis Baratheon from Game of Thrones. And he was a very good choice for this role. But was he as sinister as they portrayed him in Braveheart? No. I mean, he's just basically like you expect a British king to be in those days. And from what I've read about Edward I, he was fairly typical, no more or no less a tyrant than any other king back in those days. He actually fought, in the Holy Land in one of the Crusades. So I don't know whether that made him more of a good guy or not. But like I said, he's typical for his age. Also, we had James Cosmo in this film playing Robert the Bruce Sr. Of course, if you watch Game of Thrones, you know he's Lord Mormont of the Night's Watch. So it was kind of nice to see him in this film. Although I think he played a role in Braveheart. I have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure he was in Braveheart playing one of Wallace's soldiers. So that was kind of interesting that he would be in both of these movies. We also, like I said, we had Mr. Kick-Ass himself, Aaron Taylor Johnson, playing James Douglas, or as he's known throughout history as Black Douglas in this film. I didn't even recognize him. So he kind of disappeared in this role for me. So he was pretty good. I wouldn't give this film 5 stars. I would give it more around the 3 stars range because, like I said, at times it felt kind of like a television movie, but when you actually saw a battle in this movie, it actually felt like it was filmed for the big screen. I mean, it was visceral and just terrifying and everything you want in a battle scene. I mean, it was just as bloody as anything they filmed in Braveheart. But you could tell that they kind of cut out some things. I've heard it premiered at the Toronto Film Festival and was criticized for being too long. And I think they actually cut out 20 to 30 minutes from the film, and you can kind of feel it throughout the movie. And because the movie concludes at the Battle of Laudon Hill. If you know anything about Robert the Bruce, they set that battle up in this film as kind of like the turning point in Robert the Bruce's campaign. And really, it was the Battle of Bannockburn, which was the actual turning point. And there's a whole strategy they set up. I won't spoil it, but the whole strategy they set up during that battle actually happened at the Battle of Bannockburn, not Loudon Hill. So I was kind of a little bit disturbed by that. And they also had Edward II in the battle, and he was not at the Battle of Loudon Hill. Like again, he was at the Battle of Bannockburn. So it's like they combined both of those battles into one great battle. And I don't know whether that was an editing choice. It happened as a result of cutting all this material out of the movie, but it felt like it. So, like I said, I would give this movie a 3. And that's primarily because of Chris Pine and some of the other actors. Some, like I said, the Game of Thrones actors. They had top-notch talent in the movie. And so, you know, it was interesting. Was it as good as Braveheart? No, it wasn't. You don't see William Wallace, and I think he had a scene that was also cut from the movie. I'd be interested to see the director's cut of this movie one day. But like I said, it was kind of a run-of-the-mill medieval battle movie, war movie. And I enjoyed it, but, I could take it or leave it. If you have a couple hours to spare this week or this weekend, I would give it a look. Like I said, like Chris Pine was worth the, your time to check this out. So that's pretty much all I got to say about it. Outlaw King. See it if you like Chris Pine. Like I said, I could take it or leave it, but that's my grade. And that's all I got for today. And I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.